Welcome, everyone, to the podcast. Let's go beyond the connection today. I'm here with Michael Pittman, and I'm the host, Steve McDonald. Now, Michael, you're the Chief Executive Officer and founder at Connected Solutions Group. That just starts to tell the story because I'm going to let you dive into this, but you had some really great accolades in building this business and building businesses that have been recognized as fastest growing in the area and the country. And I'm going to let you tell me a little bit more about the details behind that. But you are an OEM manufacturer as well. I'm going to let you explain more about that. And if that didn't keep you busy enough, you're married with two kids. And I think it's fascinating. Your boys are into kart racing, and that takes up a lot of your time outside of the office here. What I would love to do is before we jump in, have you give a little bit more color commentary to that introduction, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, that sounds great. And first of all, Steve, thank you very much for having me on the show. Excited to be here. Yeah, so look, Connected Solutions Group is my largest company that I founded and very proud of what we've built here in about 10 years. We're a huge Verizon partner in their co-sell program, which is a B2B referral program where essentially the Verizon, the carrier themselves, see our services as a true value add-on to their business customers. And where they're looking to sell a line of service, they realize that the customer needs hardware, but they needed to do something very specific for their business. So they want us to hop in there and make that hardware do what they needed to do. That could be configuring devices, adding staging and kitting and fulfillment, doing on-site work, installing things in vehicles, installing things on buildings, assessing signal strength, and really trying to enhance network capabilities in that circumstance. Really, CSG is just tagged in to take a wireless customer in business and really focus on the needs that their particular business has, and to ensure that we can set these devices up and set the network up to do exactly what they needed to do. And yes, in 2019, we really exploded. We were the 8th fastest growing company in the US, according to Inc. 5000, and the fastest telecommunications company in the country. And it's really just on the back of us building a special culture and building some solid services. But ultimately, our tremendous partner in Verizon really referring a lot of business to us, and us just taking that ball and running with it and trying to do right by Verizon customers. To take that a step further, we did start manufacturing our own equipment at CSG. We really just filled some gaps that we saw out there where we have a really unique lens, I think, where not only do we see what motivates the carrier sales reps and the carrier themselves, like Verizon, and what drives their sales activities, and then what the customer really wants and needs and sees and feels. So, because of that, we have that unique lens that we see products that might fit or fill a gap that current OEMs out there aren't really filling. And then we took the plunge and said, okay, let's make them. We feel like we have a good brand. We have good brand recognition in our channels. Let's bring some devices to market and really build services around those devices. And I had some success with it. We're really excited to do that. I love branding things. Branding and marketing is a big passion of mine. So we continue to do that into 2021 and beyond. And then as of today, we've created our own brand and our own OEM called Catalyst. That's with a K, in which we take the expertise that we've learned so far on the manufacturing side with CSG and really try to expand that footprint and brand more products in this space. But it's been really exciting for sure. And yeah, as you mentioned, my children are 12-year-old twin boys. Kart racing is their passion. During the pandemic, they fell in love with racing in general, and we got them in some go-karts, wondering where it would take us. And 5 years later, and a lot of checks spent later, they are very passionate about this sport, and we have a lot of fun with that. It does take up a lot of our time on the weekends, as it's about 10 months out of the year that they're racing. But yeah, it's a big passion in our household.
I can only imagine as the chief dad officer also, how much time and energy goes towards that. Here's what I'd love to do. You eloquently talked about how your position in the market with Connected Solutions Group is a value added reseller. But the title here today is Beyond the Bargain, creating network value that outlasts the lowest bid. So there's a lot of inertia behind low price, low cost commodity. And it can be hard to sell on a value basis, a little bit more, but a lot more value, because the receptivity to that isn't always there. And the channel isn't always there in how they're training the customers. So I'd love to just have your perspective on the price versus value dilemma and how you see it.
Yeah, so you're hitting one of the hottest topics in our world for sure. And I can tell you, it's not an easy thing. And when you're selling in channel, and typically there are multiple hands in the pot when trying to get a deal done, it's not just you trying to make your money. Typically, there's other partners involved that also need to make their piece. You're aligning, you're trying to put a vision together for the customer, and not everyone is bought in necessarily to the same exact mission, but you've got to find a way to drive as much value and revenue as you can for the customer. And it's tricky, and it's very tricky in today's landscape where, especially at the tier one carrier level, there is somewhat of a race to the bottom in the sense that the customers know that they have leverage. It's a highly competitive environment. They know that they can go T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, US Cellular, MVNO, data aggregator, eSIM provider. All of these guys are vying for the business. So they know they can price shop. They can simply say, hey, I've got X amount of lines that I'm willing to move over. What can you do? And immediately it just becomes about the number. And then when a VAR is tagged in, it is our job to illustrate some type of tangible value outside of that MRC that exists at the carrier level to prove that by going with this solution, you're getting the best ultimate value. And that could be services, that could be like signal and enhancement and being able to provide the best throughput and the best speeds, being able to move the data. If you want to talk about SD-WAN or any type of solution that will define paths for the connectivity depending on where priority is needed, boots on the ground, services that allow the customer to focus on how they make money and you do more work for them. So their resources are allocated in a better fashion for their business. That is our job, to try to take everybody who wants to win the deal and to put it on a platter in front of the customer and say, go with this option because you're not only getting that monthly recurring fee from the carrier, but you're getting a suite of services that make the deployment easier, that make the deployment more effective, that make your life smoother because you're not dealing with trouble tickets and dealing with things internally, and you've got this resource moving forward. And that's what we try to do every time. We know, let's say, especially being a Verizon partner, we know that the other carriers are often willing to really try to win on price. How can you, CSG, show this customer that our value here is a stronger value? And that's the name of the game. That's the ticket. And it's easier said than done, Steve, I can tell you.
I can only imagine. Before we get to that value and that competitive advantage that you're talking about, so I want to dig into that in a big way. A lot of times in a sales environment, it's reframing the problem so that the customer understands at a greater degree, because lots of times with problems that we've put up with for so long, we're used to it. And so we live with it and we don't really realize how damaging it is to our business, how much better it can be. How much do you spend time on reframing that problem for your customers?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. And sometimes in our world, it's about almost educating the customer on the fact that it can be better. If you are used to a certain level of service and you're like, oh, I'm getting by and I'm paying X amount of dollars for it, then what's the big deal? Just show me something else that is of the same value and let me pay less. And I'm happy as the customer. That's where we try to prove to them that, look, that there are tools in our tool belt to make this connectivity better, to make it more reliable, to make it so you don't have any downtime or outages, or let's say heavy periods of, let's say, network saturation where things just slow down a little bit. And if we can get you to experience the better side of it, then you're going to understand the value in paying a little bit more. But if you're not really aware, if you're just used to, let's say, average internet, and it is sufficient for you to run your business, then you may not see the upside of really good internet. And that's where I find us a lot trying to dig in, because everyone, when they go into the call, a lot of times in today's world, Steve, they are just thinking about price. They're just like, all right, I have 4 or 5 options here. I'm sure it's all relatively about the same. Let me just see how cheap I can get it. And we're out to prove that it's not all relatively the same. And until you kind of experience the things that we have to offer, you may not understand that. But we feel very confident that if you do experience it, and when there is just a little bit of a, let's say, a problem or an outage, that it kicks over just immediately, doesn't have a second of downtime, doesn't even interrupt a call like this, and you didn't even know that there was an outage, then you're going to see the value. When typically at 4 o'clock, the network bogs down a little bit for whatever reason, and your invoices go out a little slower, you're going to notice at 4 o'clock that they don't slow down at all, and you're cranking through them faster. And by showing you that value, if you're willing to allow us to show you that value, then we feel like we're going to win. We're going to prove to you that it's worth it. And that's the struggle. That's the battle, and that's where we have to allocate a lot of different tools and marketing and sales approach and just overall effort to afford us that chance. Give us that chance to show you, and that's what we're after every day.
Yeah, it's amazing that much of a sales effort has to happen in a world where we've been in a digital transformation world for a long time, where the difference between today's business and tomorrow is how they're using their data to provide customer service, to make strategic decisions, to be up and operational, whether you're a 3 restaurant chain and you're trying to make sure that you have the right supplies on hand. You've got an app where you're trying to make sure that your delivery times you're promising for people that are ordering are up and meeting the promise that you're making. Everyone today relies on data for their business. And when it interrupts the whole flow of the business. So what I want to do is I want to ask, you talked about competitive advantage. And one of the biggest competitive advantages today is the experience, the customer experience that's created. I would love to know from your side, the customer experience that you're providing, but then how much with the value add that you're talking about to your customers, its impact on their customer experience and their competitive advantage.
Yeah, Steve, so perfectly said. So that's our obsession right now, and we're not alone. I think in hearing even the mission objectives of some of the tier 1 carriers and the big guys out there, CX is like everybody's focus, because at the end of the day, there is enough of the customer base that has understood that if I feel like I matter, then I'm willing to deal with a little bit more cost. Just make me feel like I'm not a number and that I matter. So we're obsessed with that here. And we have, honestly, the last 2 years, we have worked so hard on every single customer touch. When I say every customer touch, literally every automated email, every way that we answer the phone, the way that the support call is answered, the way that support calls are routed, the way that invoices go out, literally every customer touch, because we are so obsessed with trying to get that customer experience maximized. And I think the customers that really love us and really resonate with us understand that we are doing everything we can to make this as painless as possible for them. That's the end of the day. They have a revenue stream that has nothing to do, or barely has anything to do, with how they deploy their mobility. Their mobility is a mechanism to meet their end. And the more resources that their IT and their systems folks are putting into really gaining maximum efficiency on this type of equipment, is time that's taken away from what's actually driving revenue for them. So we just say, at the end of the day, we are your mobility partner. We go into it knowing that you're going to rely on us. You're going to call a 1-800 number and get a direct CSG employee when you have a need. You're going to have a direct project manager on your account that extends beyond the salesperson that just puts what you're ordering on paper and make sure that it ships out. But this project manager knows everything about how this stuff is being deployed, when you need it, why you need it, what sites we're going to. And their role really is to just make this as seamless as possible for the customer. And then in turn, the efficiency gained is that they're focusing on what drives their revenue. We're just this sounds corny, Steve, but I mean it with every fiber of my being. We feel like we become a part of your organization when you commit to any type of, let's say, non just transactional business with CSG. If you're doing a rollout with us, if you're doing a project, if we're doing multiple cities, multiple towns, if you're on a purchasing plan, if you're on a rollout plan, we genuinely feel, okay, our role here is to make this as smooth and effective as possible and limit their involvement at all. Like, we want you focusing on what you do best. We're going to put a statement of work in place that says this is exactly what we're doing with your devices to your employees or your customers. When we are on the same page with that, and you go focus on what drives revenue for you.
It's the kind of thing where it's a complex market that's always changing. But if the one thing that the customer knows is you're there to support, you've got their back. That has to be the number one thing that happens in customer experience and support. There's something that always changes and usually for the better, and that's the introduction of new technologies that are constantly coming out. What are some of the technologies that have come out recently that have really helped that value driver, that customer experience that you're talking about there?
There's a lot of, let's say, API integrations and ordering software and really being to integrate with our customers so that they can truly see in real time what we're doing. I think that's number one. Back in the day of, I've been in this business over 20 years. And back in the day when we were trying to help customers in this way, and we did the best we could, where we really were just following along on maybe a shared Excel sheet. And then today, there's just so much cool stuff we can do to integrate ordering and operations so that there is real time visibility. If I'm staging your devices here, you know exactly where they are, you know what phase the project is in. You can look up the IMEI and tracking data. You can go into the software and see that we've loaded your MDM and that your profile is loaded on the devices, your apps are loaded on devices. Like, everybody can visibly see it. So if your mentality, and understandably, has been, I can't rely on a third party to do this critical work because this hardware is so important to our business, I'd rather bring it all in and have our guys do it, and we know exactly where everything is. We feel we can provide that same native environment today just with the type of software and API integrations that we have with our customers and our platform and our Oracle-based platform that we use here that has given us a lot of new tools in that way. So I think that's been just a really exciting advancement that makes a third party vendor truly, like I said, even more of, this is just an extension of us. You know, I can see, heck, I know the 5 human beings at CSG that are working on my project today. And when, let's say, God forbid, a mistake happens and the wrong device got shipped to Dubuque, Iowa, see who touched it, where it went in the building, how that mistake possibly happened. And it allows a whole nother level of accountability with us, with the customer as well. So I think that's been really exciting. And then just pure from a big macro level, just everything 5G, and 5G finally really becoming real 5G. I think that the carriers were eager to market 5G before that type of true game changing speed was really reaching a lot of non metro areas. But obviously, just billions of dollars have gone into that infrastructure now. And I think customers are finally starting to see that, number one, you can use, let's call it, cellular internet for your primary internet. It can provide some of the best internet that you're going to get anywhere, including laying fiber. And what you can do with that wireless resource now and the flexibility that it gives you, I think it's going to continue to change the landscape of how wireless companies look at this stuff, or end users, I should say, B2B customers are utilizing wireless networks. That's the best way I think I can answer that. Internally, the best systems that are really making the most difference are just how well we can integrate with our customers and become part of their team with the new software. And then just the possibilities with fixed wireless and on through IoT on a true C-band and better type 5G environment is very exciting.
I want to ask you a couple more questions on this. There's kind of a wireless first adoption strategy that most companies are now taking. And like you said, you're recommending. But at the same time, there's still a lot of misperceptions out there that wireless isn't as reliable. Well, wireless doesn't have the resiliency of a wired connection. It doesn't have the throughput that we always need. So in kind of this wireless first infrastructure strategy that you're recommending for your clients now, what do you tell them when they have those kind of concerns, those kinds of objections?
There's a lot of look, every day that goes by, Steve, it gets better and it's going to continue to. Like, I think even where we are a year from today is just going to be dramatically better. LTE, for what it's worth, is going to continue to just be phased out, and all of the resources that are going into aging infrastructure are going to continue to be focused on 5G, and you're just going to see it get better and better. But we feel like if we have an address and we can see where you're located, where the towers are relative to your place, where you need the connectivity inside the building, we feel very confident that we can bring you the bandwidth that you need. As long as you are, we can't create signal that doesn't exist, but if there's something there, we feel like we can pull it in. We can maximize the efficiency of the bandwidth that you have. If that means antennas outside of the building, whereas years ago, that was like hundreds and hundreds of dollars to mount an antenna outside of your building. Today, it's a fraction of that, and they're more effective, and they don't even need to be like permanently hard mounted or provide any kind of outside damage to the building. If there's where you're utilizing the resources in the building. Obviously, if you're trying to put cellular routers in a telco room that's behind under the stairs, surrounded by metal everywhere, that's going to be a challenge. But there are many ways to go around that to, again, pull that signal from outside and bring it into the telco room if that's what you need to do. It really is about understanding that these solutions are a little different than just your cell phone. When you're just using your cell phone inside of a building and you're like, this isn't reliable. Sometimes I drop calls or my signal is weak in here. That's where we come in and say, look, we're going to guarantee a certain amount of uptime and connectivity. And to do that, we're going to do a site survey. We're going to make sure the setup is correct. We have a lot at stake because if we sell you this solution and we are obsessed with telling you that we want you calling us for support, we want you calling us if there's a problem. If this thing isn't working, then, then it's costing me a lot of money, right? Because you're calling my support over and over again, or you're going to return the products. We go in and make sure that it's built properly. And I think the big thing is, Steve, that, like I said, even 4 or 5 years ago, the idea of sending a tech on site, doing a real survey and indicating exactly where the cellular strength is, where the towers are, pulling that network into the building, doing heat mapping of where the signal is strongest and weakest, that was thousands of dollars. And in today's world, 5+ years later, not only has the hardware come down, site services have come down, the carriers desperately want this business. So they're willing to pay partners like us and do things to help offset the costs of making these things happen. And it's the consumer that wins. It's at the end of the day, they're getting a more complete, real enterprise grade network setup based over cellular, and everybody is still making the margin that they need. The other thing I'll just throw out there is almost every router that we sell with any consistency, Steve, is dual SIM. There are so many options that you can do with that backup SIM slot. Man, there's just so many options. You could just identify a carrier that is solid in the area. You can do smart SIM, which is automatically going to grab the best network in the area. And even if it's more expensive data, if for some reason your primary fails or is struggling, that device is configured to automatically go over to your backup, and it allows you the best possible connectivity right there. You don't even have to do anything, and then you get a report at what happened, how much data was used, and then you can make better decisions for your business based on that. So a lot of different ways around it. We have seen it work in many primary use cases in the last 18 months or so. And we believe that over the next 18 months, it's just going to get better and better.
As I'm listening to you and I ask the question, like, how do you address that objection? And I'm thinking to myself, you've been one of the fastest growing businesses in the country. You stake your reputation on the fact that you're delivering wireless services. You're not going to have a business if you deliver services that aren't reliable. So your very business model, your entire livelihood for your family and those beautiful boys that are doing the kart racing, you have invested in a wireless first business that brings wireless first strategies to all of your clients. I think that just speaks volumes right there. So here's my last question for you. And that is that there's a lot of IT infrastructure people that are on the podcast and listening. And we've talked about so much. If you had one recommendation for them as the audience of, in general, who you sell to, and you provide these value added services and customer experience, if there was one thing that you wanted them to take away from this podcast, what would that be?
When it comes to your connectivity, don't just race to the bottom. That's the bottom line. It's so important. Take a look at not only what the monthly recurring charges are going to be from the carrier and what speeds that they say are going to be available. And that could be that could be your wireline or wireless internet. But look at your existing infrastructure, how you're trying to grow your business, where things are strong, where they're weak, and then look at the total package that the vendors are putting in front of you and spend some time on it, because there are a lot of ways that we can maximize efficiencies for you. And I'm speaking for all my competitors, everybody in our space, that our job is to make internet better for business. The more you talk to us and tell us what you're doing, what data you're using, when you're using it, how you're using it, we are going to identify things that will make it better. And we're not just trying to make an extra buck on you. And that is, in today's world, I get it. I feel that way as a consumer in many things. When I'm trying to be, let's say, upsold, Steve, like I'm joining a call because I wanted to buy X. And then they start taking the discussion a little bit in a different direction. What I would ask the business professionals listening to this, when it comes to your internet, hear us out. Allow us to show you why, in some circumstances, spending a little bit more will improve your experience, improve your business, improve your uptime, improve your delivery. We're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. We're trying to pull the wool off your eyes to see that there's tricks to the trade that we are privy to that may just add the slightest bit of revenue of cost onto your quote that can really make a difference in your connectivity. And if at that case, if we lay it all out there and you don't see it or feel it, then we understand. But give it a listen, because you'd be surprised at the value that we can put in front of you. And that's really my main message. And like I said earlier, it's easier said than done in today's world. Like I tell my sales guys all the time, if it were easy, everyone would do it. It's just, you got to have the willingness to push the customer to see the value, and they've got to be willing to listen. And that's all I would ask.
Here's what I know is that people are going to have questions. Is it appropriate that I give out a link to your LinkedIn profile, but if people do have questions, they could reach out to you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'd love to speak to anyone. This has been great.
The whole mission of this podcast is to come from various perspectives, different levels of experience, all the years of insights and perspectives that we've gotten, and share it with each other so that we all get to know and understand what we all know and are passionate about and can help all of us. It's the rising tide that lifts all boats. And I just want to say thank you, because I think you did a really good job of doing that today. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. I know every sales professional out there in our space and not in our space understands that the challenges with this, and it is a challenge, but believe in what you're selling, believe in the value that you provide, and let the customer feel that. They'll be willing to hear you out.